Hello and welcome to another edition of the Diversified Semantic Layer. This is Eric Vallo back from a long holiday break, and I'm joined by everybody left to right: Clint, Greg, Jamie, and Josh. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
We'll pour one out for Dallas because he couldn't make it. My wife's gonna be really mad. So what's new with everybody? We've been gone a month.
I know.
Somebody go.
But nobody can hear me, as always.
Jamie, what is that?
That's my phone case. I constantly forget where the camera is on this iPad.
Well, Clint is settled in an Aussie now, right?
That is correct.
And he's still
Sweating.
Yep.
he's still bandwidth challenged. It follows him everywhere.
I've done the speed test and I get about 100 megabits per second, but I think it's just my face is camera shy because I just can't get it going.
We're gonna have to find some foreign proxy so that Google doesn't know it's you.
I think that's it. Or I just need to get a new Mac. I think it's the way.
Are you connecting to that 100 megabits with a tin can and a string?
Well, we had the new in South Africa. The new Mac G5 just launched, so that was pretty bleeding edge. But they've got some very thin silver ones over here, and I'm trying to figure out what those are. Game changing.
Right.
They call it the Newton. So, what's happening in the community? It's been a long time. I don't even know what's going on without you guys, really. Or which community are we talking about anymore?
Well, so for ASUG, I know the call for presentations for Sapphire/ASUG annual conference just ended. Hopefully you all got your submissions in on time. And next week, hopefully all of the volunteers will be at the volunteer meeting picking out a great program for the year.
That's exciting stuff. There's an eventful group show coming up too, right, guys?
Mastering Technologies.
In Melbourne in March. I think end of March.
Are you both going?
Okay.
I'm going to go. I don't think Josh is going.
Bummer.
After 6 months of sleeping at my desk, we've got a huge amount of work on. So no conferences till the second half of the year, I think.
Just Baraka and business objects for Josh. All right. Well, let's get straight to it.
Anybody seen SAP's Sorry, Eric. Anybody seen SAP's new site about SAP Analytics Vision or something along those lines?
Story, I think.
Yep.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Why?
I haven't seen it specifically, so I think it's a good thing that SAP isn't driving everyone to SAP.com because clearly that's just a marketing channel. But I think that they are perhaps getting a little scattered with all these microsites.
I could use a legend to tell me
Can you
which
guys-
one to use for which purpose.
Yeah,
Just cross the
that might
credit.
be helpful.
Yeah. Way to start us off with a contentious topic. So, oh, you're just setting the tone, aren't you?
Uh,
Can we get on with it?
yes.
Yeah. All right. So, wow. Who brought this one up? Was it you, Josh?
Yeah,
Greg.
probably.
No, Greg's gonna
Greg?
take credit.
Oh, good. Go.
So Greg asked the question in our inner sanctum that is DS Layered. Is ETL dying and or dead? I hope you're still listening. Wow, what an interesting topic. Who wants to set the stage for that one?
Well,
Greg has honest?
Yeah. Greg, we can't hear you, dude. Oh, crap.
Is he frozen?
What did you
How
do?
about now?
Was that
Yeah, there you are.
You know what it was? Charlie stepped on the mute button again. I gotta get in his headset. Oh my goodness! No wonder you
or
can't
a
hear
better
me.
dog?
Yeah, or a better dog. No, he's a lost cause. No, so Josh, you go first. You're the ETL guy. This was your topic originally. It was my fault that we brought it up. I'm not taking credit for the topic.
Nobody wants to go first. Cowards.
I'll go first if you don't want to go.
I've got too much to say. It'll take an hour.
So if no one else wants to go, I'll start then. I'll throw the
Greg.
atomic fireball. So yeah, I think ETL is dying. It's traditionally been the long pole in the tent. It's been the most arduous task of picking up data from disparate systems, cleaning it, and sanitizing it and loading it into these data warehouses, into these data models, these sanitized and normalized data models. And then we write our SQL against it, and everyone tries to be happy. But it's a long, costly process, costly in time, costly in resources. These ETL tools, data services, is not cheap, and its other competitors on the market are even not cheaper. So I think with things like the way we're starting to see, it started with Hadoop and the MapReduce and unstructured data, and it's really found its stride now with the newer, faster technologies, in-memory and stuff with HANA. Go ahead, I'll say it. You don't need ETL. All the data is just there, and you can create views and and stuff on the fly in memory. And why do you need to pick up and truck data except to chuck it into the in-memory appliance or into your nearline storage?
Woo! All right, show's over.
Well, so I will take exception with one bit you said there. So I don't think that Hadoop and MapReduce and all that stuff takes away any need for ETL, right? In fact, it might make it almost more important. I mean, Hadoop is a very cheap place to store data, but it's not an easy place to get data out of, and it's not a super fast place to get data out of for most of our current business intelligence use cases. I think it certainly has some potential to reduce our storage costs, but I don't think it's going to kill the need for ETL. I think the only thing that has that potential is something like HANA, where it takes the data in whatever format you have it, and it makes it super fast. I think that has potential to kill ETL, but Hadoop, I would argue, does not.
So this is okay. Let me. I have too much to say, but let me hop in. So the keyword here on memory is fast, and now that's a failing object. It's a stupid argument, in my opinion. Sorry, going quite harsh here, but the reality is why ETL comes in, and what's happened with pretty much every organization, whether it's from IT consultants like us through to retailers, is that people have just acquired. So we're ending up with these massive multinationals that are basically gobble up all the small guys. So what that puts you into
And while Clint experiences technical difficulties,
We're losing
Not
you, man.
really.
No, you're lagging out.
yeah.
Okay, let me try to drop back in. I have so much to say.
Yep.
I'm gonna drop out.
There's a shocker.
I kind of sit on both sides of the fence with this one because in some ways I see what the technology can do with HANA, and I'm thinking really OLTP versus OLAP and the need to move data from an OLTP structure, physical structure, into a dimensional structure or into an OLAP cube, or however, moving that data is primarily what we tended to use ETL for. I think that use case will slowly go away as we start to see the capabilities like HANA and as analytics views and calculation views. You can effectively remodel the data and do quality checks and stuff like that straight off your OLTP system. But show me a customer who only runs one SAP system and no other systems, right? And that's where I think ETL doesn't go away, because you always will have multiple systems. So even if you do have HANA, and that's great, and 75% of your business data is stored in an ERP system running on HANA, you still need to get the other 25% of data in there somehow. And as Clint, I think, was going, when companies then go and acquire, your company might be running SAP on HANA. The company you acquire might be running Oracle on Oracle's in-memory data solution. Well, then what are you going to do? Are you going to move the data between because you still want it in one place? So I think
you just don't acquire anybody dumb enough to run Oracle.
But I still think it fundamentally changes, though, Josh, because even if the role of ETL is going to evolve, because the T part is going to go away. And when we're just moving things into these fast appliances, you don't need to transform it anymore. It's just a pump and dump, right? You just need to get it into that appliance so that it can be fast. You can do those quality checks on the fly.
Can somebody hear me? Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you. I know you're starting to foam at the mouth. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's just the shitty cup of coffee I've made.
So before you start, we should tell you that we all decided ETL was cool. So
Okay.
knowing that, whatever else you need to say.
So I've actually got a separate tab where I'm booking a flight to America, so I can come whip all your asses anyway. So I mean, Greg, I understand your point about yes, it's going to collapse and the T is going to go, but going back to what I picked up with Josh saying, let's say someone runs SAP 75% of your data, then the T can go because you're going to come off source system into analytic views. But it's at 25% or even the 10% of those disparate systems for the spread marks where people have under their desk, which they really want to enrich the data, that's typically not going to be found in your source systems. That's where it's going to come into play still.
But why wouldn't you enrich it in HANA with Lumira or Predictive or whatever else?
Yeah, what he said.
I mean, obviously, some form of ETL will always be around, right? I mean, there's still people who have, PCs instead of Macs, right? So obviously, some old stuff will always stick around. My Christmas tree is still up 3 weeks late. There will always be laggards, right? The question is, I think, will cutting-edge companies be able to eventually get rid of ETL?
I want to. I think we're on a path when we started with the theme that is ETL dying, but I think you've all said something that I want to say something very concisely about is that ETL has to evolve, right? The definition and its traditional place in analytics has to change. Yeah.
So we need to have an ETL-E. Is that
just even from the
ELT.
Just from the business case of how we've used it. I mean, again, look at the time and the cost that it takes to take a data warehouse, a new data warehouse data mart, right? To analyze the data in the source system, to build that ETL code, and to transform it around, to build the data model, and to load it. That takes months and months, and we can't afford that anymore. People can't wait that long for that kind of data.
And tell me the last time that ETL was not the bottleneck on your BI project.
It's always the bottleneck.
Whoa. Let's step back a couple of... The reason, and again, this is my experience of why ETL is a bottleneck, is because the source system's shit. And if you actually look at it from a holistic point of view, if the source system put in quality information, properly structured without shitty data quality, and it actually worked, then you wouldn't need ETL. So I don't know why ETL is getting blamed here. The reality is that it's bad source systems created by human beings that puts in the need for ETL.
All right, first of all, I don't want to add the explicit tag to this podcast. We tone it down a little bit, damn it. A second, garbage in, garbage out has always been a problem. Always. That's the point of ETL, the transformation piece. But when you look at HANA, isn't that part of the value proposition where we're using the modeling capabilities of HANA to not duplicate data and to do it real time in memory, as Josh suggested earlier, right? It's no diss to ETL that it's part of the bottleneck, but the reality is, as we transform as an industry towards technologies like SAP HANA, does that really need to happen at the ETL layer? That's the question, Clint.
So the question
Someone else
is...
talk, then.
Okay. Go for it, Josh. Well, the question was posed to me, so I was just answering it.
I think that the need is changing for ETL. It does need to evolve, and that with capabilities like HANA, I think ETL goes from 100% of being necessary in a BI project to 10% where it suits. I think that's going to take 5 to 10 years. ETL's not dying yet. It's just you can see the kind of the symptoms very up way forward. If you look at how they're evolving data services in the latest releases as well, they are moving towards an ELT model. If HANA is at the hub of your company and your BI strategy, then data services is only about getting disparate data, whether it's from outside your network or from other internal systems, loading it into HANA, and you actually push down all the transformation capability into HANA, because HANA can do it actually quicker than data services can. So I think SAP are evolving data services with HANA in mind, but they still got so many customers out there that are running data services in just traditional BI projects today and data warehousing. So they're trying to balance that kind of need of how do we invest in the product and build a future product that's going to work with HANA, but also meeting customers' needs today.
Well, and I think you hit on something valuable there, right? I think that none of this is really going to fundamentally change until we start having some applications that are built with HANA or something like HANA from the ground up, right? Where they don't have to have 14 copies of the received data somewhere in the application, right? Where a single table can drive that stuff throughout the application, right? So that the master data isn't in 14 places within the application. I think that once we start building applications with data models that look like what we've always wanted our data warehouse data models to look like, I think that's where we'll start really moving the needle on getting rid of ETL.
Okay, I have to speak. I can't keep quiet any longer. So that, to me that comes to a very much Eric, going back to your point, I agree with you. So, but the reality is it comes. Settle. Plain flat hooked.
Podcast is over.
Yeah, the friendship is terminated. Is romantically
We're losing you again, dude.
Every time he has something profound, his connection goes south.
Was he going to say romantically aggressive?
He did.
I use the word romantic in terms of ETL. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a big cup of coffee. I do agree with you that does happen, but they're too huge. Okay, so if you look at it holistically, if you look at all the time, effort, and money spent in ETL, it could give you probably a 1 or 2 terabyte HANA instance, right? Is that fair? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you look at it, but the reality is you're not going to. That's no one can hear me. I'm going to stop talking. Okay, dude, I'm going surfing. And I'll see you next week.
I think there's an interesting point here, right? Because if like I always like to talk about customers that come in and maybe they're newer organizations and they buy a new ERP system. If you're in that circumstance and you buy SAP ERP running on HANA, I don't even think you need a data warehouse to start with, for the first 5 years. I don't think you need to put in BW, right? Like you've now got HANA Live and you've got business objects sitting on the top, and that just by itself will give you so much capability, probably more reporting and analytical capability, and mobile, BI and everything that you need without having to invest in a data warehouse at all. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you're a company with a whole proliferation of systems, just buying HANA isn't going to fix your problems, right? You need to do an ERP migration. You need to migrate your
Somewhere
ERP
Steve
system
Lucas
onto
just
HANA.
shed a tear.
There's still a huge amount of work so say you've got 5 systems and 2 of them are SAP ERP. You need to migrate them both onto HANA, you need to migrate your BW system onto HANA. Then those other 3 systems, you can either re-engineer them so that they live on HANA, which is a huge amount of work, or you you put up with them being outside of your SAP landscape, and then you still got to get the data into HANA so that you can consolidate it in one place for your analytics and reporting. Yeah, so I guess that's I see that there's like a spectrum where, in some cases, data services just isn't part of the landscape because even data warehouses aren't part of the landscape in a more, simplistic landscape. But at the other end, there's always going to be ETL there unless you re-engineer all those systems or their functionality into SAP, into, one application, which I don't think will happen anytime soon.
If you just said this and I missed it, forgive me, Josh. But when we talked about getting the source system data into HANA, I mean, isn't that a valid function of replication too? Whether you're using rep server or SLT, doesn't that, in its very nature, if you're going to get source data in its rawest form, doesn't that negate the need for ETL too?
Sure, and replication technology is actually something we're doing a project around at the moment, and it's really interesting stuff, and how it fits with ETL. But the problem you still got, if you are replicating, then you've got data that you can't join potentially to your other data that you have in HANA already, and that's where data services, the T will come in. Is I need to do some kind of master data mapping, so that when I get everything into one place, then all my reporting can be, joined across, and I don't have any issues with data not matching and stuff. So replication will kind of get the data in there, but it may not be able to be linked effectively to your existing data.
I mean, you'd probably just end up in your HANA system with some very ugly coded views of trying to map and substring and do all the messy things that you do in ETL, and then end up with an unmanageable view that only one person knows. That's the danger of that.
Yeah. I thought you'd gone away.
No,
I turned off his video.
Yeah.
Could you try and say something profound again to see if this sticks? Well, I guess
I
for
like
me it's still this isn't Lethal Weapon 2 or 1, whichever one that was. I guess it still comes down to a question of modeling. Then it all depends on the source. Whether that source data can come in cleanly through replication. It's still a case-by-case basis, very much so.
Yeah, and I mean, could HANA do it all virtually? Sure, I think most likely 99% of the time. But you then have that question of, if I'm, like Clint was saying, if I'm having to do substrings and casts and all kinds of funky stuff in the view every single time someone queries it, and I could have just done it once in the ETL, why wouldn't I just do it once and get it working? I mean, you're putting that performance overhead every time you query. It doesn't make sense, in some cases.
It's for me, it's not more the performance. It comes back to the conversation of handwritten SQL versus ETL tools, whatever that is, and then you're almost back to the age of whether we've got this, frank.sql that runs and nobody knows what it does and anybody's too scared to touch it. So you don't actually understand what's happening with your data. So if any changes happen at, say, source system X, which is not SAP,
Losing you again. No.
People don't understand what's happening with their data anyway.
I think Josh made a really interesting point that I just wanted to turn around again. Is as these apps fundamentally shift, and they're newer apps that are built on HANA and other things that are like that, where the ETL is not important, then so dies the ETL, right? Mm-hmm. But it's all about the shift and the business adoption and how fast things move into that model and away from the legacy stuff and the way we've been doing it the last 30 years.
It's also Greg, it's the mindset as well. It's a mindset of saying,
sure,
let's just put ERP on in memory. We don't need the data warehouse anymore. And I know that's the topic I defend passionately. But if people change that shift to say, out of the box, we could get 50 sets of analytics, we could get all of this in real time, we don't have versions of the data, and CIOs start making that purchase decision, then that shift will change. Otherwise, it's going to be back where it is.
And I think the other, within the SAP community, I think this is it's definitely the strategy SAP is heading in, and it makes sense. But we also have to keep in mind that organizations aren't only ever partnered with SAP, and they have so many disparate systems. And I don't think we're seeing the strategy from any other vendors that I've seen. I mean, Oracle are just talking about putting your data into in-memory store. They're not actually pitching this. Hey, build all your applications on in-memory and disk-based databases go away. SQL, Microsoft aren't doing that either. And you've still got players out there like Teradata and Netezza, and their strategy, they don't really have much else. So they're kind of like, no, you still need this kind of box. It might be in memory, but you still need to move all your application data into it, and then you do all your reporting off of that. So I guess there's still a shift in the whole industry of ERP and databases that needs to happen if we are going to get to that place where ETL just doesn't exist, because or is in a very limited fashion, because no one in the industry is saying that you need it.
Again, I think you just made someone at SAP cry.
But I think the sheer fact that these products exist and these, the Netezza and the Exadatas and all this other stuff is because we all recognize that the old model doesn't work. And a big part of that, again, is ETL. It's that the time that takes to move and get the data out to make it into the information that people can consume.
Okay, because source systems were never written from an analytical point of view.
Well, right,
it's
and they're
not
never
personal, man.
It's not personal, and they're never going to be. The data is always going to be crap.
Oh, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be anymore.
The point is that it doesn't matter. You have to get it to the point where it doesn't matter, and that's where we're on the cusp of that now.
But Clint, if you take it back a step further, ETL was only there because you couldn't query a third normal form database and not kill the application. That's the only reason they started doing ETL, right? It wasn't that a data warehouse was there from the start. I think if you would go back far enough, people were running SQL against the source system database, and then they were finding they were impacting, and they're like, well, maybe we should make a copy of this, and they started doing like ODSs or just a replica and querying the replica, but then that's still really terrible to report against. So then it was like, well, maybe we should just kind of tweak the structure a bit, and that's how we ended up with ETL and data warehousing.
And that was back in 1978. Right? I mean, seriously, like that. The problem goes back at least that far, right, Greg?
Yeah.
Assuming.
I'm the only one who was alive then, right? Yeah.
I agree completely with that. And another reality that I've faced, and a lot of times I've used ETLs, as I said, the source system can't adapt quick enough to change. So the business wants they want to see extra information, and the source system, because it is so old and antiquated, that can't adapt quick enough. So you have to do that in ETL. Otherwise, what's going to happen if you don't do that is the business is going to pull the extracts and create spread marks. So that's another big use case for me.
Well, right, but so that brings up the network of truthiness, if you'll forgive the marketing jargon, right? Because that is something that Lumira definitely goes at the heart of, right? I can pull in my data from either my HANA set or a spreadsheet or wherever else. I can mash it up. I can add columns, delete columns, make up numbers, do whatever I want to in Lumira, and then I can push it up to HANA, right? Where then I can marry it up to all the other data I have. So I actually think that is a great step forward in that process, in recognizing that people are going to want things that the source system isn't capable of, but that we need some level of either control or at least elegance in the solution to it.
I think it even needs to go a step further, Jamie, though, because in an individual sense, that works fine. I've got some data and I want to mash it together with my system data. But then as soon as you've got a team of people that want to start building reports and doing analytics together, well, then that's master data they want to maintain one version of. They don't want to all have their own spreadsheet that's slightly different or has slightly different spelling, and all my charts have slightly different labels on them. But we then need to, it's all kind of getting back to, where do I put this data so that it's consistent and there's a workflow around managing it and so on.
Well, but once they put that up into HANA, so they have it in Lumira, they push it up to HANA, then isn't that there and everybody can start with that base set?
I think the problem there, though, is nobody's worked out the governance point of view of that, right? I mean, that's taking somebody else's garbage, whatever you want to call it, and shoving it in memory. That doesn't make it right.
Yeah, but that's not a problem that we had solved pre-HANA either, right? I mean, it's not. I recognize that the solution isn't finished, right? But I think if you look at it, that is a problem that is being addressed. That's my only argument.
Crap, we still need a warehouse. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but people can just make up the numbers in it, so that's exciting.
Yeah. I was going to say the other use case that ETL comes in is data migrations, and again, that may be something that doesn't really go away. Maybe evolves, and we lose some of the T, and it becomes more about E and L. But you're never going to get away from data migrations between maybe massive upgrades or acquisitions, as Clint was talking about earlier. And you can do that manually, and some companies choose to. But automating, especially like SAP, and they provide data migration kind of templates into ERP, is I can just hook up data services to whatever source system or whatever manual data or a combination, and I can just pump it straight in and load all my master data and then load all my transaction data straight into ERP automatically as a one-off migration activity. Yeah. And I don't see that requirement going away anytime soon either, but maybe evolving.
Yeah, no, I think that the integration piece is the one thing that we'll never really get rid of, right? Until the whole world runs HANA, right?
I mean,
just have a single instance.
Did Steve Lucas send you a Christmas card?
He just cheered wherever he was. He stopped crying and started cheering.
I think we've all agreed, and I'm not sure. We've all agreed that the E and the L are still going to happen. It's there. It's the transform that I think we're all kind of dancing around. Is do we still need ETL for that?
Well, I think for integration we will, right? So you buy a company, you need to get their stuff in. Sorry.
No. I feel like I'm hearing.
Off. I was supposed to interrupt you somehow. That's my bad.
I'm just trying to make sure we're not disagreeing because I think we're agreeing.
I think we are, and just then the roles of the E and the L are going to evolve. Yeah. It's not going to be, I'm not going to have to wait to run my report until the ETL job's done for the day, or for yesterday's load. That role is going to be different. I think it's going to become more transparent.
So do you go ahead.
Oh, go.
Of course,
Robot. I am a robot who loves Cougar Ranch.
I was going to say, Greg picked up something interesting there. In
ridiculous.
That, the waiting for ETL to load once a day. I think that goes away in the future too, right? And data services. When you actually start to look at the performance of data services is never the bottleneck. It's always reading from the source system or loading into the source system. The database is more often the bottleneck than data services, the application. And so combining that with HANA and more of an ELT kind of approach where you're doing the transformation, some of the transformation in HANA or IQ, whatever, and bulk loading, you can actually be doing mini ETL all day long. Especially with HANA. I mean, loading data services into HANA just flies, right? Like you can tune that, and you can get millions and millions of records in a second. It's not a performance issue when it comes to HANA. So we can also change how we approach ETL. We don't have to do a daily run. We basically have a kind of continuous ETL job, always running, always picking up new data, and sticking that in HANA as soon as it's written into the source system. Or you could use replication server for that either. But if you want to be able to do some transformation, then data services is the way to do it. So I don't think the T always goes away. Some cases it does, some cases ELT, but there are use cases there.
I still remember sitting in staggering shock a couple years ago at TechEd when I took the HANA administration course, and they were talking about data services role and how you pump the data in, and that they recommended it actually be on its own subnet. And I was like, how much data does this push? And we started loading data. I couldn't believe how fast it was.
Yeah.
It's absolutely just remarkable.
I think Appleby posted a post on SCN where he was loading Wikipedia data in, or they were optimizing how much they could get in, and it was just mind blowing how much data they could get in a load.
So this may be a rabbit hole, and maybe it's a quick one. What about federation? So it's pretty clear that SAP is making advancements. Don't you shake your head no yet. I'm not done talking. I mean, if Clint could actually talk. I need to set the brown ale aside for a moment.
I have so much to say again.
If Clint could actually talk, smart data access makes it a pretty clear message that SAP is innovating in this space and maybe doing a stellar job based on HANA as a platform to federate data from disparate data sources in the way that is hopefully performant. So as you look at that as perhaps an alternative to ETL, maybe not an alternative, just a supplement, does that further degrade the requirement for the ET or L or whatever?
Okay, let me go. Let me see if this works. Can everybody hear me?
For now.
Cougar
Talk fast.
So to me, the whole...
Dude, I think you have a koala bear chewing on your line.
It's like the second he gets to the epic point, it's like fail sauce.
Get your kids off of Club Penguin, man. Come on.
So my kids are streaming Netflix. I assume that's not a good thing.
Apparently not.
What are they watching? Lethal Weapon 2?
Peppa Pig, baby. Peppa
Pig.
It's a good point, Eric, and I think it would complement. Again, I think that works in some cases, but it comes down to if this is something that's just going to be like if we're going to be doing these queries over and over and over again, does it make sense to consolidate the data at once off, or if we can't consolidate that application in, should we be still copying the data in as opposed to trying to query it every time? Because Smart Data Access will still put load on the source database. Right?
I get it. Just an example.
Yeah, no, but I think it's a really good point because that capability, it gives you a lot of flexibility. You don't only have to copy the data in physically. Depends on the use case, right?
I think Smart Data Access is key. I'm going to speak quickly. Which has been very surprising, customers out this side of the world that I've been speaking to this year, is they've got HANA, they've got the 1 terabyte instance, and now they're very much in the now what situation. So they're looking at federation, they're looking at Smart Data Access, they're looking at other alternatives, except exactly. I think it's absolutely
Yeah, I think Josh really hit the nail on the head with that though too. So the whole federation thing really depends on the use case, right? I think there are some that it just fits beautifully, and then there's others where it doesn't. You really have to move the data. You have to do an E&L at least.
I think we just put a bow on this show, guys. ETL is not dead. It's gonna change. It's gonna continue to change. It's already changing to a degree, especially for HANA customers. For the agnostic crowd that may be using Oracle or Teradata, it's probably going to change there too as in-memory technologies become more pervasive. Fair statement?
I still don't think anybody else has in-memory quite figured out the right way, right?
I said going to. I didn't say today.
Yeah, but they're not even looking at making things that you can build applications out in memory. I think that's really the difference.
No, but they're feeling the pain though, so something's going to come out at some point. Because even in that world, look at all the stuff that Oracle's been doing with streams and this, parallel load processing and stuff. Because ETL there sucks too, and that's why it has to change, because it just sucks the way it is today and the way we've been doing it, right?
Somebody was viewing for a nanosecond. Oh, somebody's viewing.
Hi.
Hi, Mom. I sent my mom the link.
I'm the guy you can't hear or see.
So you're just going to view?
Kid. It's probably one of Clint's kids trying to...
He's created a paradox.
More bandwidth.
I've got one fan. They're huge.
Oh, they're gone again. Damn it. I think that's a bow on this show. Are we gonna be able to talk
really
about
good.
this again in a year? Yeah, probably, because I feel like SAP is gonna keep innovating and making this. You know who we need to have on the next show? Thorsten.
Ooh, good.
Oh, yeah.
Good pull.
Yeah. Let's give him a nod and let him listen, and I'm sure he'll have a commentary.
I have no doubt.
All right, well, it's Friday, and it's almost 5 p.m., so, you guys have already missed your 5 p.m., unless you didn't miss your 5 p.m. That's really hard for me to think through at this point. But I think we can call that a show. What do you boys say?
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
guys.
Cheers. Hey, thanks for the Saturday morning, gentlemen. Clint, it was great talking to you, of course. All right, we'll see you guys.
Bye.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us on the net at savethecms.com.